Welcome back. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and follow me at DirtleMTG on Twitter to keep up to date with the most recent videos and other posts. You can help support this content by hitting like and share, and by checking out the links in the description below. Alright, it's time to dirtle. Hello. Today's video features the elusive partnership of Nikara and Yannik, creatures attempting to find them in the wilds of Ikoria, our Lord Tresserhorn, and Volo, the Guide to Monsters, which I think is rather fitting for the setting. The Lord of Tresserhorn wins the die roll, and that drops a crumbling necropolis to the table. The turn rolls over to the partner player, and they play a Llanowar Waste. Visceraseer falls it down. Moving to Volo, that player drops a Quandrix Campus. My turn draws a Yannik, and I drop a Sandstep Citadel to play. Back to Tresserhorn, and an Underground Sea hits the field. Demir's Signet follows it down. To the partner player, and they play a Plains. They tap their lands and move to combat. The Seer swings for 1 into the Tresserhorn player, bringing them down to 39 for first blood. Volo's turn sees a Thornwood Falls into play, gaining them 1 life. A Boreal Grazer follows it down, and once in play, they play a Tanglepool Bridge from the Grazer's trigger. I draw a Duskshell Crawler, and drop a Plains. I cast the Crawler, giving a 1/1 counter to it, and pass. Tresserhorn has a Polluted Delta into play, and they crack it immediately. Bad land enters, and then they cast Pulpharos, God of the Forge, afterward. Over to the partner player, and they sacrifice the Seer during the upkeep to scry 1. They then quit the game for an unknown reason. Volo's turn sees an island to the field. It's followed by Lightning Greaves, and then an Ornithopter of Paradise. The Thopter gets equipped with the Greaves, and they pass. I draw a Swamp, and drop it to the table. Moving to combat, I swing with the Duskshell at the Tresserhorn player, dealing 1. I pass, leaving mana up for Beast Within. The Lord of Tresserhorn player has a Castle Lochmain into play. They cast Filth, and the God of the Forge triggers, dealing 2 to their opponents. I now also have to worry about future evasion from their creatures thanks to Filth if it goes to the graveyard because I have a Swamp. Back to Volo, and they cast their commander. The Greaves are activated to equip to the new summon, but I respond with Beast Within on Volo, making him a Beast token. My turn brings me a Cultivate. I cast it, grabbing a Swamp and a Forest, putting the Swamp into play tapped. I then play Temple Garden untapped to bluff removal, and pass, taking the 2 damage. Tresserhorn plays an island for their turn. To combat, and the Filth swings into me. I am unable to block due to the Swamp Walk, and take 2. In the second main phase, they cast Rooftop Swarm, allowing them to cast zombie spells for 0. Plague Belcher hits the field, and Pulpharos triggers for the 2 damage, and 2 -1/-1 counters are placed on the Belcher. They then cast their commander, Lord of Tresserhorn, sacrificing their creatures to do so. This means Filth now grants all of their creatures Swamp Walk, and that is very problematic for me. Volo's turn begins with a Foundation Breaker into play, destroying the Rooftop Storm. It also ends with such a play. To me, and I draw a Plains. I drop a Forest, and cast Noxious Gearhulk. Once in play, I destroy the Lord of Tresserhorn to stave off any unblockable attacks. I gain 4 life for doing so, and go up to 34. I move to combat, and swing the Duskshell for 1 into the Tresserhorn player. The turn rolls over, and the Tresserhorn player puts an Underground River into play. Blasphemous Act is then cast, and the board is wiped clean of creatures. Volo's turn sees them cast a Soul Ring, and then they activate the Quandrix Campus to scry 1. My turn brings me a Bojuka Bog, and I play it against the Tresserhorn player to rid myself of the filth in their graveyard. I then cast Nikara, and follow my commander with Yannik. Going to combat, I swing Yannik into the Volo player for 2, and pass the turn. Tainted Isle comes down for the Tresserhorn player, and they cast a Grave Titan. It creates 2 2/2 zombies on the ETB, and Pulpharos triggers 3 times total, dealing 6 damage to their opponents. This drops me to 28 and Volo to 27. Ash Barrens hits the field for Volo, and their commander hits the field afterward. Volo has the Greaves equipped, and they pass. My turn brings me a visit from Steve, and I drop a Plains. I cast Death Sprout targeting the Grave Titan, and grab a Forest from my deck. Yannik gains a counter from the creature dying, and afterward I cast Ikoria Tribe Elder. 2 attacks, and I swing Yannik at the Volo player, who takes 3. Tresserhorn's turn sees them straight to attacks, and they swing both zombie tokens at me. I block 1 each with Nikara and the Elder, and they cast Otherworldly Journey on Nikara in response. She blinks out until the end of the turn, and I sacrifice the Elder to grab another forest. Combat ends with me taking no damage, and the second main, the Tresserhorn player recasts their commander, sacrificing the 2 zombie tokens. When they do so, Yannik gets bigger, and once the commander's in play, Porphyros deals 2 more damage to each of their opponents. This time though, I get to draw 2 cards from the trigger from the Lord of Tresserhorn, and I draw Viscera Seer and Dispark. They pass, and at the end of turn, Nikara comes back with a 1/1 counter on them from Otherworldly Journey. Back to Volo, and a Phyrexian Ingester hits the stack. Once that comes into play, Yannik is exiled. Nikara triggers, I draw a card and lose 1 life. Command Tower comes to my hand from the draw, and the Volo player passes. Macleod the Unhallowed comes to my hand, and I drop a Command Tower. I then cast Viscera Seer, and follow that up with Dispark, exiling the Phyrexian Ingester. I finish up with a cast of Cauldron of Souls, and move to combat. I swing Nikara at the Volo player, dealing 3 commander damage. 2 Tresserhorn and a Dragon Skull Summit lands on the table. They move to attacks, and swing their commander at Volo. In response to no blocks, the Tresserhorn player uses Porphyros to pump the Lord to 12 power, and it deals 12 commander damage to the Volo player. The turn rolls over to that player, and they cast a Hornet Queen, which gets essentially doubled thanks to Volo. This gets them a total of 10 flying and death touch creatures to the field. They move to combat, and swing their commander at the Tresserhorn player, dealing 3 damage. In the second main phase, I activate the Cauldron of Souls, giving both the creatures I control persist. I then sacrifice Nikara to the Seer, scrying 1. Nikara returns to the field thanks to persist with a 1/1 counter on them, and I scry a generous gift to the bottom. On my turn, I draw a Galvani Township, and drop it to the table. I then cast Yannik, and when they enter, I exile Nikara. Once resolved, I give the counters to the Seer, and then cast Macleod the Unhallowed. 2 attacks, I swing the Seer into the Volo player. They block with an insect, and I activate the Cauldron. The Seer will come back with a -1/-1 counter on it, but it doesn't die thanks to Macleod, and I lessen the offensive power of Volo slightly. The turn goes to Tresserhorn, and they drop a Tainted Peak. They move to attacks and swing at me with their commander. I intercept with Yannik, and the Tresserhorn player responds with 2 Porphyros pumps, which makes me double check to make sure it doesn't have trample. It does not, but everything becomes more clear when Kazal's Fury tosses the creature at my face for 12 damage, dropping me to 13. In the second main, I sacrifice Yannik to the Seer, scrying 1, and triggering Macleod. Yannik comes back to play, and I exile the Seer, giving a 1/1 counter to Nikara. Nikara draws me a forest, and I lose 1 life, and then I finally scry 1, putting Thematic Compass on the bottom. Back to Volo's turn, and they cast a Mercurial Pretender, which gets copied. 2 more Hornet Queens enter the field, creating 8 more insect tokens on top of the 2/2 Flying and Death Touch Hornet Queens that are, well, Pretenders. They move to combat and swing all available insects, splitting the damage between Tresserhorn and I, dealing 6 damage to me and 5 to the other opponent. I drop to 6, and Tresserhorn to 24. On my turn, I draw a Restoration Angel. I drop a forest, and cast the Angel. Once in play, I blink Yannik with its trigger. The Seer comes back to play, and Yannik and Nikara trigger. I use the Yannik trigger to exile the Seer again, giving 2 1/1 counters to Macleod, and drawing a Soul of the Harvest and losing another life from the Nikara trigger. I go to attacks, and swing the very intimidating Macleod at the Volo player, and Nikara at the Tresserhorn player. Volo takes lethal damage, unable to block thanks to Intimidate, and the Tresserhorn player takes 3 commander damage. In the second main, I commit the Soul of the Harvest to the board, and pass. To the remaining opponent, and they cast a Burn Down the House. I activate my Cauldron of Souls in response, selecting each creature I control to gain Persist, and they surrender the game. Good game to my opponents. Nikara and Yannik initially held my interest when Ikoria first came out. I even built a preliminary paper deck for it. However, it long ago fell by the wayside, and I only recently resaw it, unfinished, here on my Magic Online account. I figured why not finish it up and use it. The premise of the deck seems good, however I did lose an opponent earlier in the game. That means seeing if the deck needs more revisions to specific areas might take many more games of testing than the few I've gotten so far. Thanks for tuning in to another casual commander game here on Dirtle Magic. Until next time, don't blink and stay safe.